Hey kids, what's going on? True story. My third favorite color is red. Vicky Joy, what's your third favorite color?
Maybe
Oh, too late.
navy blue,
Navy blue. Okay.
pink,
Okay,
black,
guys,
navy.
this is Through the Black. Throughtheblack.com is the website. You are watching the second coming of the Through the Black YouTube channel. And hey, we're glad to be back. It's 2023. Vic, can you believe we're already in our second week? I mean,
Wow.
time is flying. Before you know it, it's going to be conference time. So, Out of the Darkness conference coming up at the end of March.
There we go.
I've been on the phone all day talking about this conference to people. March 31st, April 1st, Dr. Gregory Reed. Okay, he's going to be our main dude. It's going to be Dr. Mike Spalding, Coach Dave Daubenmire. I talked to Coach Dave. We got to have that guy on the show. He's saying some crazy stuff. He was in DC this last weekend, and he was saying some stuff about what went down there. Hey, Vic, you're going to be there. Colleen's going to be there. I'm going to be there. And Pastor Sean's going to be there. We're all going to be sharing, speaking. Folks, I want to say this. We are set up to do ministry at this conference. Okay? So if you want prayer, then you got to come in. You've got to reach out to us. You got to get signed up. We're going to have a sign-up sheet. Sorry, folks. I am losing my voice tonight. But if you want to get involved in that way, then you need to do it. Vicky, take over.
Man, you guys, Tom's going to be Peter Bradying it through the whole episode with his time for change. No, so Tom, no offense to anyone on the speaker panel, myself included, but Greg Reed is worth the ticket price right there. I mean, right there. just having Greg on, and for anybody who missed it, he was on our show last week, so you have to check that out. It was an awesome show.
So, yeah, my voice is not any better. I don't know what's going on. Throughtheblack.com, we have a sale this week, actually for a few weeks. It's going to be on the all the Ezekiel 8 t-shirts and hoodies. Come over there, check it out. You can save $3 on a t-shirt, save $5 on a hoodie. We don't do this that often, but save some money if you want to get a hoodie during hoodie season. I don't know. I wear hoodies all year round. Some people wear coats in Ohio. When it gets real cold, I will put a coat on. But for other parts of the world, maybe you need a hoodie. Maybe it got cold. It got down to I heard it got down in the 30s down in Florida. So,
whoa, wow. Yeah. I'll bet they were completely unprepared. I wonder if they even own coats down there.
I don't know. Well, I have a sister-in-law, and she had to buy a coat because she had to visit Ohio.
Okay.
During the super cold week. Yeah. But anyway, Vic, enough about the weather.
Darn.
You were on with Colleen last week. How'd that go? I watch as much as I can handle, and then I couldn't keep my eyes open. How'd that all end up?
Oh, good. It was like I couldn't handle anymore, Vic. No, it went great. Colleen is an extraordinary interviewer. I'm not real good at interviewing people, but it was a great conversation. The live chat was extremely kind and generous, as are the comments that have come through. But yeah, I haven't given my testimony in a really, really long time. And so even just as I was sort of reviewing it, it was sort of like, wow, God has been really, really good to me. I have
I was watching. I was like really surprised at how many times you kind of let the Lord down. So anyway, yeah. That's just fun to say. But anyway, no, I mean, yeah, you're watching. It's kind of like, okay, we get the idea. You write a lot of books. You did a lot of writing. Okay. You write poetry. We get the idea.
That's all I got, honestly,
man. I'm just joking, but it was a really great interview. I highly recommend it. If you missed it, go back in the archives, check it out. Colleen is doing an amazing series of the Reclamation Project. And I'm just giving my co-host a hard time tonight. But
that's right.
Both of them did an amazing job.
I think Kenny C's coming up. I think we're gonna have a
Really?
reclamation. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for that
Okay.
one.
There we go. There we go. Hey, guys, tonight we have Chris Taylor. Everybody wants Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor. That's what I hear when Chris Taylor's on. Come back, Chris Taylor. Have Chris Taylor on regular. Well, hey, man, Chris Taylor is a friend, and he's doing this out of the kindness of his heart. So I don't want to take advantage of this friend, but he agreed to come on again, and it's for a good reason. We're going to be talking about music, the hip hop culture, and the satanic connections. Chris, come in here, will you, and help me out?
Hey,
There he is.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, my friend, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be back on with both of you guys. And
We've been spending a lot of time together, man. It's a good thing.
oh yeah, for sure. Both channels like both of us.
Yes.
Be that.
Yes. So, and I know we put the word out that about the show that I was on with you over break, and that was a blast. So
Yeah.
but this tonight is a very much needed show, and we're going to be talking about, as much as we can, just kind of exposing the hip hop culture. Now, I'll tell you what, Chris, I like all kinds of music, and I was kind of late coming to hip hop. I didn't catch on the way a lot of people did, but when I did, I went backwards and I went forwards, and I started out in the middle, and I just had an appreciation for this art form, okay, that originated from the streets of New York, really, okay, and then I'm shocked to see that it's pretty much what drives our culture today. Now, let me say that I don't like the new art, if you want to call it that, that's being put out versus where it started at.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to talk about, and I have questions, Vicky has questions, and you have answers. Where do we start? Can we start at the beginning of where hip hop started? I mean, we're going to talk about all kinds of music. I mean, in what influenced hip hop and all that stuff. It's relevant, okay?
Right. Well, it was started in the 70s. I even remember there's one, I don't remember his name or nothing, but as far as I know, there's supposedly this one guy that was rapping, and he was a gospel rapper before any of these people were known, the original ones that we could talk about, right? And I guess he just faded off into history. So I'm born in 72. It was started around, I guess, 1970 or a little bit before that. And obviously it sprang up from New York, like you said. And from there, it just started to get popularity, mostly in the 80s. But when I took a trip to New York with my grandmother, and there was some TV show on, and this is the first time it sparked in my mind, and it was showcasing the Fat Boys and stuff like that. And from there, it just stuck. And then pretty much as I got into junior high school, that's when I really started getting entangled with it. But you know, it, we got to make a distinguish between what rap music is and what hip hop is.
Yeah.
Rap is the art form, the lyricism, the poetry.
Mhm.
That's what the music is. It's rap music. Hip hop is not the music. Hip hop is the culture, and that culture has, I believe, 9 or 10 pillars. You have the breakdancing, the b-boying, the DJing, and on and on. So it's clear. It has to be remain clear that they're two distinguished things.
Would rap be a pillar of hip hop?
Yeah, lyricism.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let me ask you this. What about graffiti? Is that part of it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Then it evolved to other things like drugs and whatnot.
Right.
Obviously, premarital sex was always a part of it. So it's semi gang culture and just regular ordinary hood people.
But let me ask you this. It didn't necessarily originate that way, did it? I mean, was all that stuff kind of added later? I mean, they didn't set up all the pillars and then say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Did it just kind of evolve like that?
Now I don't know the entire backstory, but
Okay.
people that started it they already had what's called the Temple of Hip Hop,
Okay.
right? And we all know what people do in a temple, right?
Right.
They worship.
Mm.
So there's a spirit behind that music. You had Grandmaster Flash, Furious Five, and these other artists. And for the most part, it wasn't this intense spiritual movement behind it, but it was a lot of party music, club music and whatnot. And so the gangster element didn't come in yet. The Some of it came in within the mid late 80s with KRS-One and stuff like that. And when I say gangster, I'm not talking about what you know as gangster now. I would say really just gangs.
Yeah.
You know?
So, hey, well, let me interrupt you, Chris. Do you remember that song, Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge?
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to lose my head. It's been a long, is that, I mean,
long time.
See, I remember when I was a kid. Okay, it's not that funny, but listen.
It kind of is.
So, who sang that song?
Oh, Melly Mel?
Name that tune.
Got to be Melly Mel.
I don't know. But I remember that's my first memory of hip hop, and people were bringing it to like we had a friend of the family that was like a dancer, and he would dance to hip hop music, and it was all cutting edge at the time. We were just like blown away. Okay, now I'm from Ohio, so it's a long cry from New York City, right?
Yeah.
Grandmaster Flash sang that. I don't know. I think I know.
You're right.
You can look it up. Close to the Edge. Don't push me.
Yeah, it is Grandmaster Flash.
It was okay.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt you, but that was really important. So,
it's interesting, Chris, because I was born the same year that you were, and my first memory of rap was Will Smith. Parents just don't understand, and then getting jiggy with it and all that. And my take on rap when it first came out was that it was very innocent and sweet and funny. Like a lot of it was funny, and it had little twist endings, and you had I kind of feel like there was a bait and switch at some point where it started out just kind of very cute and fun and funny, and then all of a sudden it just got so lascivious.
Well, we're gonna get to that in a minute.
All right.
That happened around the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that the gangster element wasn't there before. You had a song called PSK. That was pretty much a gangster rap. If anybody wants to look that up, look up PSK and look at the lyrics. It had its gang influence, but it definitely wasn't. I'm gonna shoot everybody up and do all the stuff they're doing now.
Yeah, bust a cap.
Yeah, and I grew up in Florida, so like I said, I took a trip to Ohio, and then that from Ohio to New York, and that's where I got introduced to rap music, and I flew back to Miami. But I didn't have this. My mother wasn't buying this stuff, and whatever. I was in elementary school. We didn't have access to it, and I didn't listen to a lot of radio at that time. So the songs that I did hear were more disco and the R&B stuff that was out at the time. A lot of stuff like Earth, Wind and Fire, that sort of cosmic R&B type stuff, So, and back then, no one wanted to integrate with rap music. And it was this thing where we don't want to deal with these peasants. that's the attitude,
It was considered a lower form of art, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And these records weren't going platinum and all this until certain artists came by, like Run DMC and stuff. So I mentioned Miami for a reason, because at the same time that was growing in Miami, we had our underground scene, and it was mostly bass music. But but some of that bass music came with the raunchiness, but not the raunchiness of Two Live Crew. Okay. You had artists like this is back to New York now. Mr. Big Stuff. Who was that again? Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, guys. I can't remember who said Mr. Big Stuff. He oh my gosh, this was a big song at the time. And the fat guy, man. Come on, guys. Help me
Heavy
out here.
D, Heavy D.
Heavy D, there we go. Yes, Heavy D.
Yes, ding 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 ding.
Yes. So he had the big song, Mr. Big Stuff, and that got me into it more and whatnot. And that was around the time that I started to go to
Heavy D and the Boys.
Yeah, Heavy D and the Boys.
Mm.
So in the beginning, you had Curtis Blow and all these people, and those songs picked up here and there. And we used to have the mixtapes, and we go buy the mixtapes or get the bootleg or whatnot, you know. And so, like you said, the original way was more fun, but there was the other element as well, what you would call music from the 5%ers. Okay. Now, let me explain that a little bit. So, one of the foundations of hip hop is out of the Afrocentric movement, and what we mistakenly call Islam. The reason why it's not Islam is because the Nation of Islam, it doesn't really hold to the whole tenets of Islam. It's a pseudo-Islamic movement, right? And so the 5% movement came out from there was a guy named Clarence X that used to run with Malcolm X, and they had disagreements on doctrine. And so Clarence X broke off, made his own thing, and he called it the 5% movement, and it has to do with mathematics and all sorts of racist stuff. And I mean, I got books here I could pull up that tell you some stuff that's just crazy. But here's the thing: it's about Allah, right? But not Allah as the supreme God or nothing. It's arm, leg, arm, head. And when they say knowledge of self, it has the notion of history, but it's really about you knowing that you are God, you are the I am, you are Allah. But I mean, I know Allah is not the I am, but you know what I mean. They in Islam, Allah is their supreme God, right? So they're teaching you that you are God, and there's a nation of gods and earths, right? Because the male fertilizes the earth, and it goes on and on and on, right? They even believe in this, what you would call a mother plane, a UFO that was supposedly on Earth, and then it left, and it's going to come back one day, just like you hear in every other cult. Right?
So, Chris, is now, I don't know. I studied Islam and Muslim belief. I don't want to misquote this, okay? But is this where they think? And people that are listening, they're going to think I'm trying to be funny. Now I'm not. Somewhere, and I'm not sure where this fits in. They believe that the white man was a failed science experiment. Have you heard that before?
Yes. That comes out of the Nation of Islam. It has some of the 5%ers hold on to that belief.
Okay.
Pretty much a guy named Yaqub, some sort of mad scientist with a big old head, did experiments, genetic experiments, and out of those experiments came the white man. There's another tale where supposedly, I believe it's Moses. I hope I don't get this wrong, but I believe it's Moses. And this sounds funny too. Used a stick of dynamite to blow up a certain tribe, and out of that supposedly came the white man. It's a whole bunch of craziness in it. Okay, pseudo religious, pseudo science, all this stuff. And so one of the reasons I had to make that distinction, because they say that the black man is God. They are the original man, birthed from Africa, right? But just to give you a little biblical insight, why that's even if it's just totally wrong. But Adam is in Hebrew is Adamah, which means a person that was red like the earth. That's what Adam means. He's red like the earth. So there's no original white man, original black man, he was a red man, okay? And from there came every other people through Eve, of course, right?
Right.
So they have this superiority complex within the Nation of Islam, and in fact, the founder is not black; he's mixed and has had straight hair. If you ever look up the founder of Nation of Islam, so they have a lot of uh, you know hypocrisy,
Inconsistencies. Yeah.
inconsistencies, hypocrisy, and all this stuff within there. And so, one of the reasons I'm bringing up and making a distinction between the Nation of Islam and the Five Percenters is because at the time, a lot of people would shove me stuff, or I would accidentally buy stuff that was full of 5% teacher. In the late 80s, early 90s, you had people like Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, and all these people. They were teaching and becoming famous off their 5% teachings. No one listening knew. I mean, I knew. Well, a lot of people didn't know, and these songs were getting pretty popular at the time. This was, like I said, late early, early 90s. So also, the people like Jay-Z, he wears the 5%er chain at some of the games. You can look at pictures, you can find it, but they don't necessarily acknowledge him as a 5%er, and I don't know why. I don't know.
What does the 5%er chain look like? Does it?
It's a seven. It's a seven circle with a star around it, like rays of light, a nimbus, right?
Okay.
You'll find a lot of. I believe the whole WuTang Clan are 5%ers.
Okay.
But
well, I remember I got in a debate one time at the pizza shop with a guy over the WuTang Clan because he was talking about, I was telling him what hypocrites they were because of because they sing about all of this just infidelities, right? And they're supposed to be
right,
Muslims, and true Muslims are very strict when it comes to premarital sex and stuff like that. But he was explaining to me that they can do whatever they want because of they have elite status or something like that.
Yeah, I had a friend at the time. This was mid-90s. He came to me and said, "Hey, Chris, man, I'm gonna join this thing, and I get to do what I want and drink whatever." And at the time, I was already churched, so I said, "You know what? I don't think you should go towards that." Yeah, there it goes. I said, "I don't think you should go towards that because Jesus Christ is the only way, and I think you need to go back to church, man." He never joined, but I'm not going to say he became a Christian either. You know, I was glad I was able to detour him from that. So you guys remember Public Enemy and all these people?
Yeah.
They were involved in more Afrocentric, fight the power type thing, militant stuff that comes out of Nation of Islam. When I went to New York a second time, this was around 91, 92, I went to Chuck D's, the Public Enemy member, the lead rapper. I went to their store in New York, and I saw this stuff in there.
He's got like a bookstore, doesn't he? Chuck D.
Yeah. I went there. And so one of the reasons that I want to bring that up is this was very popular at the time. MTV played all this stuff day and night. Okay, so I was a kid that would go to school with the headphones on all the time, right? So I would listen to all these songs, and it didn't really take a solid root in my heart, but there were a lot of things that you hear today from like Black Lives Matter and all these other things. So they had a component of communism in there, Marxism, even though they didn't say those terms in their songs. And they're not the only ones. I mean, this was flooded through the music. And the 5%er stuff, I listened to it in the early mid to late 80s, and you had artists like King's Son. He had the big old medallion. Rakim. A lot of people know who Rakim is. He said he's God. G's the 7-letter made, right? And he's really preaching to you on a lot of his records. Other records would go into like pseudo gangsterism and whatnot, But from the moment you pick up a Eric B. and Rakim record, you're getting taught 5% theology, right? So I never took hold to none of that. I just like the lyrics and whatnot. And of course the beats. Most people are going to tell you, I just like the beat. I don't care. Don't tell me none of this stuff. I just like the beat. Right. But we have to understand that music It's the only thing, the only influence in our life that when we can't stop it from getting in. And when it gets in, it affects every part of your brain. You can't stop it. When you go shopping at the store, guess what happens? It influences you when you're shopping. Even though you might have your mind on this one target, it still influences you, right? And especially if you're the type of woman that's susceptible to shopping on a whim, you'll find yourself going all over the store, and they play the music, not just to calm your mood, but to help you shop.
Hmm.
Okay. So music affects every part of your brain. And so people that say it's just music, it's just this, it's just that, whatever it is, they're not understanding the science. And most people are not interested in the science, right?
I think it's good they play music at restaurants, because if they didn't, you would hear everybody chewing, right? So you just have like a little bit of background music, because I'm like, why do my kids are always telling me, man, you're chewing too loud. I'm like, I'm not chewing any louder than anybody else here. Why are you picking on me? Seriously, it happens like on a regular basis. So I'm trying to chew as quiet as I can. And I'm like, that's why they have music at restaurants. I mean, one of the reasons maybe that they have music at restaurants. Sorry, I just thought of that because
I mean,
Man.
and that's cool, music in the elevator or whatever.
yeah.
So,
Anyway,
I guess some of the stories I'll tell tonight will get you to understand why I'm just adamantly like I don't want to hear no secular hip hop, and that starts in
but
'94. But
Chris,
let's stay on track.
what
Mhm.
about my Adidas? What
Oh,
about my Adidas?
okay. So as hip hop started becoming popular, and remember, hip hop is a culture, rap is a component, right?
Mhm.
It started to influence, just like any other music today influences the youth mainly, right? Man, my Adidas got rich off of Run DMC. And I'm not even sure they even got a check. Okay,
Probably not.
hip hop, the hip hop culture till today sets trends. It is the number one trend setting music ever. Okay, why can I say that? Because it has influenced every genre of music, every genre. The other genres don't do that. They might do it a little bit, like say rock into classical music and vice versa. I love listening to movie scores like Hans Zimmer and stuff like that. There's hip hop in that too, you know? So it is the one music art form that I know outside of, let's say, maybe classical music, because classical music kind of goes everywhere. And say ritual music. You'll find ritual music all over the world and they sound the same. So it's just the one thing that I've noticed in my lifetime that has influenced every form of music and entertainment. So I think that's one thing that people need to know. The influence of hip hop is almost unstoppable. I mean, see,
Mm.
it has influenced gospel music, you know. Uh,
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think that's an important point to make.
Mm. Well,
Uh,
and Chris, I find that interesting too, though, because even like Tom and I have done shows about this before too.
mhm,
You can go to like the widest echelons of music. You can go to heavy metal, you can go to rock, you can go to classic rock. You start honing in on who influenced those bands and specifically who influenced those guitar players.
yeah,
They're all going to go back to some ancient blues guy that no one's heard of, like
yeah,
Robert Johnson or something. So it's almost like rap is like the modern reiteration of that. Like if hip hop is now the foundation for all of the styles coming out, it really was that way in the past too, because I find that a lot of the music that's been popular over the last 50 years also came out of African American influences and their music and their gospel traditions and their musicianship as well.
yeah. Because we play on different chords. It's not do re mi. It's something else. Doom da da doom doom da doom doom. Something like that. What some would call jungle music or whatever. But I mean, look at reggae. You go into reggae, which spawned itself from a cult, really, Rastafarianism,
Yeah, right.
that went all over the world as well. You know, and I think sometimes it really has that spiritual component that many are not really identifying with at the time. until they figure out something else later, like 20 years later or whatnot. Because, say, for instance, Wu-Tang, they were influenced by the East, the martial arts movies and stuff like that, and even some of them, the samples that they took for their music came from that same sphere of the planet, the culture over there. And so you wouldn't really care or know unless you start going back to some of the old records. And some of the music I would hear from RZA, I'm like, where'd they get that from? And I go look, I'm like, oh snap, it's from some old Japanese song or whatnot, So we hip hop takes bits and pieces from all over the place, whether it's blues, whether it's religion, whatever, and it just most of it was thievery, honestly. But we don't care because it sounds good, and ultimately it comes back to this idea of we're living in a pagan world, so we can't expect them to do different, but the influence is definitely one of the things we're going to keep hitting on as we go.
So, I want to. I know we're going to be talking about a bunch of this stuff, and we went back to the beginning. We've been just kind of going down these rabbit trails. I know I've been jumping in, asking questions, but really, right from the beginning, there was a dark influence in hip hop. Okay, and I mentioned this before. Think about the name Grandmaster Flash. Grandmaster is a rank in the Masons. Okay. And I mean, that's the best example, but there are other, you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of other examples like that in early hip hop. Okay.
Yeah. Like, okay, pull if you can real quick. Pull up a picture of Eric B. and Rakim's first album, and then pick up, and then
Eric B. and Rakim.
Yeah, and then you could pull up a picture of not Farrakhan, but Elijah Muhammad, and you'll see what the resemblance is like.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll have Katie. Yeah, we'll see if Katie can work on that. But
yeah. So, okay, so as Christians, we know that if it's not coming from God, it's coming from a dark force. Right. Some people don't believe that the apparent satanic influence, that one that's in your face, was already there in the early 90s, like a group called Almighty RSO. The guy that started The Source, can't remember his name right now, The Source magazine, had a 666 carved into his haircut in a music video. Right? So their song wasn't talking about worshiping the devil, but they know what 666 means, And so you had these influences from some of these the newer rappers from the 90s. There's one I'm trying to remember right now, man. He talked about it says people worship 666 or something like none of us believe in God. They're claiming to be atheists and they're talking about 666. In fact, the rapper's dead right now too. I don't know if somebody in the comments can help me out. They probably know. It'll probably come back. I have a ton of rappers on me right now. Oh,
so Chris, let me ask you this: was this what's the motivation, or what's the target, or what's the maybe the agenda behind this? Okay, was because it wasn't only African Americans that love black, but in the beginning, it was received by them more, right? But then it became it kind of took over culture altogether. But so was this just a natural fleshly thing that manifested in music, or do you think there was an agenda from the beginning, just to, because these are not, a lot of these things are not the values, you know what I'm saying, of the black community, the things they're singing about. I mean, yeah, we understand that Earth, Wind, and Fire, all of the transcendental stuff. And yeah, there's lots of disco, some sleazy stuff from the 70s, black and white artists. We know that's there.
Yeah.
But I mean, was this an infiltration? What was this?
I think it it definitely spawned from a spiritual place, but it's hard to pinpoint. I mean, it's good that you're pointing out Grandmaster Flash, how it connects to masonry and stuff.
Mhm.
But if you look at a sinful heart, it doesn't take much to start reading this stuff.
Right.
You're right. It's just that
Mm.
you have restrictions, like we didn't have the code that goes on the sticker that goes on the CDs. We didn't have it at first, and so there was no restriction, but people knew to kind of hold back. Don't come out with nothing stupid. You won't get played on the radio.
Mhm.
So we got regular music in a sense, And then after a while, the underground, the people that were rapping on the underground, they started getting more popular. Like I said, these mixtapes would come out, no restrictions as well. And then the same people would start getting airplay, and then they'd have to start censoring the music. And then all of a sudden, when Gangsta Rap came out and Two Live Crew and stuff, then we got the stickers on the CD. The NWA. So there was a progression societally, culturally, that moved not just the Black community, but the community in general. See, here's the thing that most I don't know how many people know this, but when you go to footage of any rappers' concerts from back then, it was mostly white people, right? And most of the Black community was more entrenched within urban communities. I'm not saying all poor or nothing like that, but urban communities. And so you wouldn't see a lot of that at the big arenas, right?
Right.
They were Run DMC and all these people were packing stadiums around the world, and so you would see mostly white people there. Yeah, so that's where a lot of the cultural influences started going global. So Paid in Full, you want to look up the album cover, and then there's another one. Oh man, there's one where he's wearing a hat. Maybe it's not Paid in Full. Maybe it's another album. But Rakim is wearing a hat that's similar to Elijah Muhammad. I wish I had that prepared for. So see that?
Oh, okay. And I think I saw it in there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this is Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah.
So
and the point is, he was that dedicated to the whole. So one of the questions you asked earlier, since we're kind of progressing here, is how did it turn into what it did today? This is factual. There was a guy that used to be on MTV and run it. He was like a producer or whatever. And he did a video. It was on YouTube for a while. I'm not sure if it's still up. But when BET got bought out by Viacom, they started changing things. And one of the things they started doing was started influencing, bringing more of the influence of the gangster raps, the NWAs and things like that. And they wanted to push that up more than the positive music. And so that would keep that community dumbed down. And look where it's today.
Yeah. Chris, I saw a video years ago that was so intriguing to me, and I don't know if you can corroborate any of this, but it was kind of on the topic that we're talking about today. And it had sort of like a Tavistock spin to it, that this was a very intentional, created genre. And going along with what you just said about keeping people down, it was also, they said that there was an element of it where they kind of wanted to keep the white people in check too, by showing like this people group is to be feared. And they said that it ended up blowing up in their face, because the theory was that they never anticipated that suburban white kids would be interested in this music at all. So then, of course, they decided to capitalize on it because they could make money off of it. But have you ever heard anything like that this was sort of like a Tavistock sort of creation?
No, I haven't heard that, but I could believe that based on just based on the origins of abortion and where they placed the first abortion mills. Yeah. And when they bought cocaine and crack and all that stuff into what neighborhoods they targeted first, right? And what spread out from those neighborhoods? abortion and
Yeah.
crack and whatever, so because here's the thing. Around that time, there was uh, violence from the cops or whatever, abuse from the cops, but it wasn't widespread. So for the most part, our communities got over the stuff from the past that they keep on reminding us about. I'm from Jamaica, so I don't have the baggage of the Black American. I grew up in Florida, yes, but I'm originally from Jamaica, and my family, we talked about none of that stuff. We didn't try to remind ourselves about this thing that happened, hundreds of years ago or 30 years ago, whatever. So all we saw were neighbors. And so some of the problems that the Black community has or has, the white community, urban community had too. They had drugs, they had, splintered families and, whatever, low income jobs, and they related to the music. Unfortunately, though, some of the violent stuff spread into, because the drug culture also spread as well. And so with those elements, you really don't need to push it much, but because of the influence of the music and the type of hip hop they help to spread, that kind of like is like a gasoline on fire, And so who promotes the same thing? The movies. I mean, remember that they had TV shows like 227, Cosby, and all these shows that were positive about family and
Jefferson, Sanford and Son,
and they stopped promoting those shows, right? Around the same time, or
Good Times,
early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, close to the mid 90s, whatnot.
Different Stroke.
And then yeah. So it wasn't about all this race.
What's happening?
Yeah.
So we were moving past all of that stuff, but they had to bring, I'm not saying the Rodney King thing was on purpose or anybody planned it or anything like that, but that was a flashpoint.
Yeah.
To where we started getting divided again.
Yep.
It's interesting.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, that we have to, we got to kind of talk about race when we talk about this, but I don't think we can really skip over this because it's very relevant. Okay. Now for me, I'm a super conspiracy guy. I've looked into this stuff. I believe this stuff. Personally, I believe the government took out MLK just like they took out JFK. Okay. And I believe he was getting too much following and he was speaking out on the war in Vietnam too much. And that was a problem. And I think they took out, they somehow got in there and maybe caused somebody in their own group to take out Malcolm X. Okay. So I feel like the Black community is very aware of these things. Okay. They're very, what's the word? Untrusting, right? Of certain, of a lot of things for very good reasons of police, of government. Okay. And then here comes a platform, okay, to sing about these things. I mean, Marvin Gaye, he's saying what's going on. And that's a good song, but here was a platform that was more gut level and honest. I remember watching Yo MTV Raps, and I'm like, what's up with these dudes? And NWA, these guys look like they're just having a bad day, right? Because they were just like being interviewed, and what's his name? That little round guy was trying to he's trying to interview him and stuff, and the other guy, and they're just like not happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and I saw this. I'm saying all this because I live in Mansfield, Ohio. I don't live in, LA or New York, but I saw that influence the people that I went to school with.
Yeah.
And racial tensions rose in my school.
Yeah.
And there were some beat downs. Okay. And then people kind of learned okay, there are certain, lines you don't cross, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but I think that this music was very empowering, and there were some positives and negatives to it. So I don't know. Can you speak to anything I just said? I don't even know if I.
Well, yeah. Now what I'm about to say goes against the grain altogether.
Okay.
Okay? But I want people, when I say this, for you to go do your own research. Even though the powers that be did take out Martin Luther King, communist. Okay, he was that day's Barack Obama. He was a Marxist, and he went to these meetings, the communist socialist meetings, and they even have pictures of it. So sorry if that hurts anybody, but yeah.
Wow.
But
Hey, I was just reading the comments. Say that again. Who were you just talking about?
Martin Luther King.
And
Martin Luther King. Okay.
Okay, now the FBI did take out a lot of our leaders, and when I say leaders, I that's kind of tongue in cheek,
Mm-hmm.
and influences. I have a book here now. It's written from a liberal standpoint, so if you go by this, take it with a grain of salt, and I'm pretty sure it's factual, at least mostly. It's called The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Black Leaders. Okay,
Interesting.
all right. And then I have another one called Drugs as Weapons Against Us. This is by John L. Potash. The CIA murderous targeting of SDS, Panthers, Hendrix, Lenin, Cobain, Tupac, and other
So,
acts.
Wow.
Chris, that's another thing I was going to say. They took out King X, and they flooded the hood with cheap drugs because the Black Panther movement was getting too powerful.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then, I mean, what about AIDS? The
Mm.
evidence that AIDS was created to cull the Black community is overwhelming.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I lean that that's true.
Yeah, I do too. Here's the thing. Because all of these are flashpoints.
Mhm.
If you ever go and watch the documentary called MAFA 21, MAAFA, MAFA 21. That's one of the best informational documentaries you're going to find on the elites agenda with Planned Parenthood. But the reason I really want you to focus on this film is because they tell you all of the elite control that was at the time. They funded all the Rockefellers and all these, some of these Black politicians, like you got Jesse Jackson. They know that it's wrong for it to be happening, but they won't say anything because they don't want to get destroyed. And to me, that's cowardice. So this whole scheme, starting from the whole Planned Parenthood thing, it dives into all sorts of issues, right? And what is it about? Is it just about culling the Black community? No, because these people feed on this stuff. And when I'm saying feeding, I mean they generate a lot of income off of this. Okay, just like child sex trafficking or any other trafficking that you can imagine, right? And so there's a money issue there. They run guns through the community, right? And you got the drugs, you got the guns, you got everything. I mean, I'm watching documentaries on different drug dealers, different gangs, different people that got the hubris to kind of like push this through the community. And what I'm watching is first an interjection of Marxism, and second, they're acting like this is okay. Like you're destroying your community, but you're complaining about the white man, right? But this stuff was pushed in there through the CIA, through the FBI, and all this stuff. This
BLM.
is all yes, and the elites are in control of this. The first way they got to the Black community and also every other community is dumbing down our population, splitting us through class, right? There was always going to be poor people, yeah, sure, but they split us through class and dumb us down. Now, in certain districts, you have good education, that's for sure. But if you start looking at some of these blue zones, you wonder why they look like how they look, and then they have a plan to, like the term I could use now is gentrification. Gentrification is not always a bad thing, but there's another term I learned today, man. where they want to meld the communities. What do you call it when like a corporation like buys up all these others? Let's say a record company buys up small record companies. What is that called again?
I know what it's called, but I can't think of it right.
A monopoly?
Not monopoly, yes, but it leads to a monopoly.
Okay.
Oh man, I wish I remember the term right now. But anyway, that's the thing.
It'll come to you.
You have these pockets of people, and they're separated, and they're doing good. So what you do, buy up this community, buy up this community, buy up this community, and you integrate them. And from there, you start to control them. And that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place in Florida called South Beach. And this is where all the stars and whoever hangs out. And right down the street is the ghetto. I mean, literally a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're doing there too. And even in Vegas, they're doing it here. You start seeing homeless people in
Hollywood too.
And more middle-class neighborhoods. I mean, they're shipping them in.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's another rabbit trail, but it's something to think about when we're talking about why did this happen in this community or that community? Mm-hmm. It's a full scheme that leads us into where we're going now, into technocracy, right? But it started way back in the 1700s. Mm-hmm. It's just you have to know the history.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Chris, I'm beginning to think that their end goal was to eventually get the whites in there too, because I don't know how quickly the white people picked up on rap. Mm-hmm. But then I remember this trend in the 80s where it was brilliant marketing. They started, because like heavy metal was popular amongst the white community at that same time. And so I remember the first time I heard the Tone Loc song, Funky Cold Medina, they sampled a Van Halen riff. They sampled Jamie's Crying. So here you've got these people that are listening to Van Halen who are now attracted to a song that they otherwise wouldn't listen to, but it's because their guy is in it. It's like, it's their genre. So now we have this mixture. And then Aerosmith picked up on it, and Aerosmith and Run DMC did that duet of Walk This Way. And that blew up. And I think that song had a lot to do with all of a sudden why all the white communities were interested in rap all of a sudden.
But you know what? I want to say something about this real quick. I saw some good fruit out of that. I think this is my personal opinion. I saw some unity, and I saw some people's paradigm shift where people that would just kind of like reject that genre of music, they're like, you know what, if so-and-so, if the band that I love, Aerosmith or whoever can do a song with Run DMC, then if it's okay with them, then it's okay with me. And I saw unity there. And then I think this is worth mentioning. In the 90s, I am telling you what, go back, remember the 90s and remember all the buddy movies. How many buddy movies was there? A white guy and a black guy. Hollywood was making money, and these movies were hilarious. Mm-hmm. Every one of them, they were great. And I thought it was promoting unity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
anyway,
you're right. You're right. I mean, today with our Marxist climate, you got to watch out because they want to be a black person and everything, right? But what they're doing is they're taking what you're talking about and saying, okay, let's use that as a weapon now.
Yes.
That's where I'm going, Chris. I'm going like with the occult blinds. You know how occult literature, they have, this is what the stupid people think this is about. It's all about love and unity and getting together. But if you know all the esoteric little language we're using, the initiates know that this actually means something else. So on our thinking, because that's exactly what happened, Tom. All of a sudden, it's like you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. You got your peanut butter and my chocolate. Hey, and then there was that in high school. All of a sudden, the black and the white kids were becoming friends. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have an ulterior motive or nefarious agenda beneath it.
I remember people that, I'm just going to call them prejudice. When they heard that Run DMC song with Aerosmith, they dislike rap so much. They're like, no way. no way, this is not really. Run DMC did not approve this. They did not approve this, you know.
Yeah.
And when they did, it shifted their paradigm.
Yeah. I mean, hip hop, for any good that it did, it galvanized communities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You had Mexicans and whites and blacks and people from the East, and this thing just spread out. It fanned out everywhere. And we're not talking about the negative influence. We're just talking about the whole rap music genre.
Yeah.
And then it started going into Germany and Europe, period, and Japan and all these places you wouldn't think you would ever find rap music. In Africa, you know, and then and they started rapping, you know. And you know, funny thing is, I found out that rap music, not rap music, but the art of battling with words, actually it goes into the Viking culture and some of the you want
Wow.
to call it Oriental Asian culture.
Huh.
Some of it is in there too. You just have to do kind of the research into, you know, battling with words and whatnot. So
Hey folks, you guys are watching Through the Black. Our guest tonight, Chris Taylor from Don't Let Them Burn. We forgot to let people know about that, and his links are going to be below in the show notes. So make sure, you check out his website, you check out his YouTube channel. This guy, I don't know how he does it. He is just like pumping out. He's got like 9 different concepts and ideas. I don't know what you got going on over there. But every time I like think I'm caught up, you've got like a different show or a different way that you're branding yourself. Tons of stuff over there. You cover politics, you cover music, you cover comic books, you cover prophecy. So don't let them burn.com.
yes.
Okay, that's your website. Go there, support Chris, check it out, subscribe to the channel and all that. But we got to remember to do that again. Sorry, Chris. Let's continue on because this is getting good, man.
All right, no problem. So okay, so it galvanized the cultures, and people that used to hate it started loving it. R&B singers didn't want to do anything with any rappers. Then guess what? The rap music started making them go platinum. And that continued throughout the 90s. You know, all of these, and then it got into country music. And then
I never thought that would happen.
Yeah, it got because, you know, the 90s, I 92, I just turned 20, right? And so all the people at my age at that time now grown up, had kids, and now those kids are now, you know, it's now 2023. They've grown up and they're starting their own record labels and doing their own music and whatnot. So they were influenced from what we were influenced by. Right? And now they're creating stuff that we could even fathom it would even exist, a dubstep and all this other stuff, right?
Dude, there's a really cool band out. Sorry. There's a really cool band. I can't remember their name, but it's like a bluegrass hip hop band. And they got a song out there, and it's really cool. I forget what they call it. They got a name for it. Sorry. But that shocks me that that's how you know, much the cultures have you know, things that were like oil and water before are now, you know, making that music together. So
and even Kirk Franklin, even though I don't listen to his music, his whole thing was about merging gospel with hip hop, which I believe was a dangerous thing, but whatever. And he did it. So right there, from that first record stomp to everything that came after that, I mean, it flooded out into what you would call, I guess, the black gospel music type genre, or whatever, right? Everything had a hip hop feel, either hip hop or R&B feel to it, right? And they made millions of dollars. Was the music good? I guess it was okay, but I just don't like the theology. Okay, so I want to step backward for a second because there's an important artist that we didn't mention yet, and that's KRS-One. We did call his name, but we didn't touch on why he's a dangerous figure to your children.
well, okay, let me KRS-One. This guy, he is the way I want to describe him, he's like a force to be reckoned with in the hip hop community. He is foundational, and Well, I mean, what would somebody say about him? They would call him one of the kings, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So go
yeah,
ahead, Chris.
yeah. I listened to his music in the late '80s, and my friends would play it. And he wasn't really my style. I was more of a Rakim guy, but we listened to it, and he had some positive records with his group at the time. Stop the Violence, those sort of positive records and all that. And back then we used to be outspoken about black on black crime. Nowadays, you mention that people are like, no, we don't want to pay attention to that. Let's pay attention to this. You know, so he did have a positive influence. Okay, but later on into the believe it was the early 2000s or mid 2000s, somewhere between 2000 and 2005, he came out with something called the Hip Hop Bible, and he called it basically a new gospel. And Biggie and Tupac are the apostles. Okay, and so he went and got hip hop declared a official religion through the United Nations. Okay, it's hard to find the proof, but it's there. And if you live in New York, go into the archives. You can find it faster. And so with that, you see there's a spiritual movement that no one can guess. I mean, not guess, but say, well, you might be thinking too hard into this. You're just making it up. You just want to bag on hip hop music. Listen, I was the biggest fan. Okay, now I didn't go to all the concerts, but I owned all the records. Okay, until about 1994, but I'll tell you that in a second. So he made this hip hop Bible, and I guess if you want to bring it up to show people, you can. But yeah, somebody said KRS One and BDP, yeah, Boogie Down Productions, and so with this hip hop Bible, which Bible just means book, but he's talking about it in a blasphemous sense, okay? Because he's all about philosophy and using the left hand path, or is it right hand path? One of them he talks about like in a positive nature. And for those that don't know, left hand path and the right hand path, it's sort of like speaking to things into existence. Oh, I'm going to do good magic instead of black magic, or what, white magic, black magic, good magic, bad magic. It's all the same thing, yin and the yang, and all that, chaos magic stuff. And so, um, yes, he is a big influence. I've seen him live, and he speaks at colleges because he's sort of like a historian when it comes to hip hop. And the whole point, though, is there's a spiritual movement going on, and you can find the videos where he says they're after the children, just like BLM, just like Satan, just like every other cult out there. They're after your children. All right. Now you want to go dig in this book on your own if you want to do the research, but it is a spiritual movement, and it's been denounced a few times. It's not as popular as it was in the I think the mid 2000s. So, but it's still relevant. And so that's one of the I would say the agendas of Satan is to get the kids more into the hip hop culture and not just through the music. It's a whole lifestyle. I mean, you talk about the N word. I used to do a lot of stuff on the street, bootleg and whatnot, CDs, DVDs, and stuff. And I would go to these. I had a hip hop magazine as well, and I was about to get sponsored by NFL and PlayStation and all this stuff, right? Sony PlayStation. And anyway, I used to go to these concerts and whatnot. I had a popular mixtape in Miami. It was called Secret Weapons, and I would just watch people. I would observe everyone, and the N word is nothing, from Italians to black people to whatever. So the stuff they do in the media to say that, oh, this person's a racist, man, stop. Hip hop is full of that. They don't care. And I'm not even saying it's right, but they don't care. I've seen one Italian dude go up to another black guy, hey, you're my favorite nigger, man. And I'm just sitting back and laughing at this. So the culture has adopted that word. But the media wants to keep it as this agitator when they want to bring up stuff like George Floyd or whatever. And that's another point I want to bring up when it comes to the culture, because the culture, forget the music, okay? Let's go into when they hold up. You'll never hear about people like Thomas Sowell or other positive Black authors or inventors. They always want to hold up the people they want you to pay attention to, like Barack Obama, George Floyd, the person that got killed by a cop, and whatever. They want to hold them up as your patron saints, and to keep you dumbed down from finding books about economics, the true story of slavery, and all this stuff. If you ever, there's a book I have called by Thomas Sowell called Black Rednecks and White Liberals, right? And it's usually the white liberals that's pushing all of this garbage, right? Because it's sold out to Marxism.
Yeah.
But the reason why he called it Black Rednecks, and this might blow some of you guys away, it blew me away, is because the way we speak in the Black community, I be, I was, I this, I that, right? It came from the British Isles. The entire culture came from the British Isles. We adopted it once we were released from the slavery. We adopted that culture because we were intermingling with British people. Okay, and so to say that, oh, this community, that's just the way they talk. No, because if you go in Deep South, most of them talk the same, no matter what the color is.
Excuse me again.
Fascinating. I think everybody should read this book. Anyway,
I
I
love
want to
that.
put up this comment. This is a good comment here. It says hip hop is so weaponized. It's like I watch the neighborhood children morph, literally.
yes,
Mm,
yes,
mm.
yes. And we're gonna get into some of that, some more of that in a minute. But just for its modern times here, why we're dealing with what we're dealing with, all of the division. Most of it started with Barack Obama, but I'm not going there right now. Know this, that all the stuff you see on TV, it's all about inclusion and diversity, but it's not including you. You're not included, okay? And so they're flooding the TVs, the movies, with all sorts of ethnicities because they want to demonize white people. Why?
Yes. Do you remember the 80s?
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Jackson was the #1 artist of all time, top selling 25 plus million records, Thriller.
Yes.
Bill Cosby, excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
Mhm.
I don't know what happened.
Bill Cosby.
Excuse me.
Very
#1 show, yes.
Yeah.
Beloved by
Yeah.
Americans, not just Black Americans, but white Americans. They
Yeah.
made it the #1 show for how many years, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, does that say what's the message there, that white people love being entertained by Black people? Or black people are very talented, they're very funny, they're very gifted. I think all that's true. Okay. But there was something happening culturally and racially there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it's a general thing. Entertain me and I will laugh. I will smile. I will have good feelings. Give me good entertainment. Write a good story. Write a good play. Write a good sitcom. There's no problems. The only problems come when people bring it up. Like, what's the guy named?
Interesting.
Oh my gosh, he played in Robin Hood.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. He said the way to get rid of this is stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? So they get. I mean, nowadays you used to have like say one slavery movie every 3 years or something. Now it's every year and multiple ones. Okay, so I don't want to go down that road right now. It's just we were united, at least through entertainment, through business. I worked with a lot of people growing up. I never thought about these things until some of the music implanted it in my mind, and that got to my heart. Thank God I didn't go over the deep end, and because my great grandfather is European, white European, so it'll be dumb for me to even go there anyway, right? So I think that's what's lost. The community's dumbed down, not entirely, not all, but for the most part, we listen to dumb music and we become dumber. I mean, look at how rappers turned out. You know, I mean, you can't hardly I mean, I remember people used to tell me, we can't understand the music. No, you really can't understand it now. Right?
It's almost embarrassing
Yeah.
for
The
the people that are
90s,
singing this.
I mean, back in the late 80s, early 90s, you had Kool Moe Dee. Yeah, he was a Muslim, but he put out he kind of like forced you to try to educate yourself. Knowledge is king. Okay, knowledge is king. I need to go read a book, right? And all these positive songs that were coming out, and then it just changed. There was some. Oh, and in the mid '90s, yeah, you had the Tupacs and the Biggies and the Mace, the P Diddy and all this stuff. But Tupac put out a lot of positive songs, and Dear Mama, Brenda Had a Baby. There was another group. I can't remember their name right now, but they had a song about be a father to your child. It wasn't about abortion. It was about being a father to your child, because we were dealing with fatherlessness back then too, right? So they got rid of all of that. Those records couldn't sell anymore, right? And a lot of the rappers that I personally call them sellouts, they were making their lyricism was on point. They had an education. People like Nas, Jay-Z, and a bunch of others. It wasn't the best positive music, but they had lyricism that you could say, man, I need to step my game up if you're a rapper. Nowadays it's more like, I could dumb it down. I could just put out whatever and people just listen to it. And I don't listen to any of it. Sometimes I peek in to see what's out there and I peek right back out, but I just got rid of the whole thing. And that brings me to the story. I don't know if I told you guys before about what happened with I was listening to a lot of WuTang Clan. So this is 1994. I had a job at a CD warehouse, and I would get everything, right? Aaliyah, anything that was out there, Brandy, all that stuff that was popping back then. And so I got hooked to WuTang Clan. I got this was around 93, I believe, where the first song Protect Your Neck came out. I got the first cassette. Me and my friend would just ride around listening to that. And then the album came out and we just, play that all the time. So anyway, they started putting out different artists now, Method Man and whatnot. And the one of the more poetic writers, Jizza, he put out an album called Liquid Swords. And I would listen to this album constantly. I'm going to bed listening to it. I'm waking up listening to it. I'm driving to work listening to it. I'm driving back from work, I'm listening to it. I'm going to sleep and I'm listening. It was just a constant rotation. But at this point in my life, I said, you know what? I need to start going back to church. And within a week, I started getting held down to my bed. And it's not the first time it ever happened to me, but it never happened to the point where I'm like, oh, what is this? So it started happening, I would say, let's call it once a week, right? And then it would start happening every other day. And I didn't put two and two together until I prayed to God, but here it is. I caught a really bad flu, and somebody from the church was taking care of me, and they were like, I was trying to tell them what was going on, and they were like, oh, you're giving the devil too much credit. I'm like, this is the answer you have for a 22-year-old kid, right? And I just kind of shut down from asking anybody at church. And I would tell family members that were in the house, not sure if they totally believe me or not, but I told them, and it just kept happening. And then I said, okay, I'm going to get away from this thing. And the final night it actually happened. Okay, so what happened? I before the final night, I prayed to God. Didn't expect to answer or anything. I just prayed to God, and I was like, why is this thing happening to me? Because it was scary. There was one night I came home, and no one was home, and I looked, and I just felt something was watching me. Maybe I was just paranoid, but I felt like something was watching me, and I drove off. Didn't even go into my own home. I came back, and I said, okay, let me just go inside. Still felt like something was watching me, and I just turned all on the lights, the crazy stuff we do. We think we can drive them away, right? Turn on all the lights. I felt a little bit better, but eventually somebody came home, and I was like, okay, fine. And so anyway, I prayed to God, and within 3 days, there was one of the songs from an album called Grave Diggers. That was a WuTang group. They were into what's called horrorcore. That was a genre they were trying to push heavily back then through Def Jam Records. So anyway, the song started playing. I think the song is called Diary of a Mad Black Woman or something like that. And the beat started, and then the record started skipping, and then it scratched. And a voice, this isn't a dream now, so I'm not saying it's a literal voice, said, it's the music that you're listening to, why these things are happening. And that was it. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start getting rid of some of this music or stop listening or whatever. But anyway, the last night it happened, I could tell that it was at least 3 spirits holding me down. And then one manifested into the back of my door, because the door is closed while they're in the corner there. And it was a black, smoky, humanoid thing, but you couldn't see the eyes or any mouth or anything, but it was there for business. They didn't possess me, so I figured that I had to be saved, right? But they were there for business. And what I did was just yell out the name of Jesus. Gone, just like that. And I'm telling you, boy, I'm 24 years old. So my first real encounter with something that really wanted to keep me held down. And we don't know what people pray over their records. We don't know what type of spirits are following or coming in because of the music. We just don't know. We can't see the spiritual realm. But I know that message was from God. You can call it angel, you can call it whatever you want to, but ultimately it came from God. And that's Chris, a true story, not embellishing.
Probably many people that have a very similar testimony that's related to hip hop, that's related to other kinds of music. Of course, we call it the doctrine of demons. I think art comes from several different places. I think human beings can make art. I think it can be inspired by God and God's word. And then when it's inspired by the demonic, okay, it's like it's a tool for them to manifest or for them to use, in some way. So, wow, that's crazy, but
yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, I'm curious. We've talked about lyrical content and we've talked about the culture, but what about the actual beat? Because a lot of these people are saying, well, I only like the beat. But we know about frequencies and things. And can you speak to the actual beat, these beats that they're coming up with? Is there something, like if there was no lyrics whatsoever, is there something to the beat itself that is able to influence people, or is there something demonic in that?
Yeah, I mean, if you just go back to David, he played chords, for the demon spirit to leave Saul.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a spiritual component there because spirit was made for worship. Some say that Lucifer was in charge of worship. He had pipes and all this stuff that's in the Bible. So there's some music component to him. He's also the prince and the power of the air. He is the lord of the flies. He is the storm god, whatever. Right. So he has an influence over this world. And I'm pretty sure we're not just speculating that he has power over some of this music coming out. Because what people are doing, people are putting out what's in their heart, right? I used to write a lot of rap songs. I would put out what's in my heart, or I would embellish something I heard, and I put that out in the music, right? And so I believe, yes, there is something to the beat. Now, I don't want to demonize a beat, right?
Right.
But since I know what can be done through hypnotic suggestion and what I call layering, you can put hidden messages in there. Anyone that's seen the documentary, They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll,
Yeah.
Understand kind of what I'm saying? But some people, they will put messages. It's easy to do. All you have to do is record whatever you're trying to enchantments,
Mm-hmm.
and just lower the frequency or lower the volume, and it still gets into the brain, or could invoke some spirit or whatnot. So it's definitely a component
Mm.
that shouldn't be ignored. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm wondering too if in some of this music, if not a lot of it, they're adding these binaural beats. You know, you can't, and they're most effective if you're wearing headphones. In fact, I think it only works if you're wearing headphones. And there's certain beats that they can play that synchronize the left and right hemisphere of the brain, and it does open up altered states of consciousness. And
Yeah,
now you're susceptible to suggestions, etc. So,
absolutely. I mean, look at the frequencies they do in Buddhism and Hinduism. They got a little bowl and they whoa, 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 whoa,
yes,
and then
yes,
you do the yoga pose or whatever, and then you invoke these spirits. Some people don't know that that's what they're doing, and sometimes it doesn't happen to them, but that's what they do,
yeah.
right? And it's usually go back to Daniel, right?
Mhm.
We had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We had not Belteshazzar, but his father, Nebuchadnezzar. What was the first thing he told them to do in order to worship the golden statue?
Was
That's
it
something
when
to do with music, right?
the pipes and stuff played?
Absolutely. The sax,
Wow.
sultry, and all this. They had to play music,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
after that, you bow down. And if you don't bow down, you're going to get thrown in that furnace. So there's always a music component with worship, with cults, with seances, even sometimes. All these spiritual actions, usually there's a spiritual component or something that could be a musical component called a chant, or whatever you're gonna. It's a vibration. It's a frequency or whatever, and we don't know exactly what that does all the time, but usually there's something that can. It's like you're calling something, you know, or so these people that make
Mhm.
the prayer circles and witchcraft and whatnot. There's sometimes it's a musical element, sometimes it's a mirror, channel zero frequency. I mean, I can go on and on about that stuff, but I think it's something that is left out of a lot of talks when they're speaking on music, because it's very important to understand that a lot of this comes from the spiritual realm. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one could even argue that a lot of these methods, especially like the repetition and the chanting of the words, like the laws and things, is being incorporated into a lot of the modern worship music as well.
yeah. There's something that happened to a quote unquote pastor one time, and I believe it's still on the internet. You can look it up. Remember the song "Happy"?
Yeah.
All right. Pharrell is into alchemy. All right.
Hmm.
And this pastor thought it was a good thing to play this song in the pulpit, and he dropped dead. He dropped dead. Whether he was a real Christian or not, you're desecrating holy ground.
Oh my goodness.
And he dropped dead. I think you can still find this on the internet. I pulled it up more than once. So I'm
Wow.
saying that because people want to bring all this stuff into the church, including hip hop, and I even did it. I'm guilty of it, and we don't know what we're doing. So
Mm.
So let me ask you this, because there's a lot of people that have done Christian hip hop over the years, all the way back to the beginning. Okay,
yeah,
there was a guy by the name of Michael Peace. There was PID. There was SFC. There was just
DC
some
talk.
really
DC Talk,
DC
D-Boy.
talk. Yeah, started out as a kind of a hip hop band. So, I mean, can you just respond to that for a minute? And it's still going on. I mean, it's become a big part of Christian music.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't use the label hip hop because I put out a song in 2020. I personally don't use the label hip hop because I know the spiritual connotations behind the word.
Mm.
Okay.
And some pastor one time, only he could validate what he said. It said that he was casting a spirit out of somebody, and the spirit called itself hip hop. Okay, so
Wow.
whether that's true or not, that's
Interesting.
yeah. But rap songs, rap beats, I'm all for it as long as um, my lyrics are serving God, or the lyrics of the rapper that I'm listening to is really serving God. What's going on in this industry? Some people are not genuine, just like in the contemporary gospel music industry. They couldn't survive in the secular industry, so they've taken on the moniker of Christian music and are pretty much doing the same thing they've done in the secular world. They got the big cars, and I remember Creflo Dollar's wife. She had a record label. Canton Jones was her artist, and he would sing about rims and this, and interject God here and there. And the last church, not the last church before that I went to, they invited this guy to our church. And at that time, I'm even worse than I am now as far as like pushing stuff back. And I didn't want to hear any of it. So anyway, came to the church and he sang whatever songs and did the rim thing and whatnot. And I'm just looking, these people, this is a sanctuary. This is the sanctuary.
Hmm.
What really was the last straw for me, he had already did his set and went off and whatnot, was they had a dance contest in the sanctuary. And some of these people got up there and did some raunchy stuff. One guy got up there and started doing his little dance and started doing this around his front, like pointing to that. And I'm like, you guys, I'm in the sound booth. I'm like, you guys see this? I'm going to talk to the leadership. This needs to go.
Wow.
Right. So I don't necessarily okay. I'm not like a hater of gospel hip hop. I really don't listen to it anyway. But I would say look at the fruit of the artists and what they say, what they do, because people like what's the one with Owl on his shirt? Oh my gosh, I think he's from Georgia or something. Lecrae.
Lecrae, okay.
Oh, sure.
I've been done with him for a long time because he just seems watered down to me. Yeah, he can rap, but I don't care about none of the talent. I need to hear what you say, and if it definitely glorifies God. And that's where I draw the line between gospel rap and gospel hip hop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. No, good. I'm glad you said that.
I think that's a great point, Chris. And I think that's where we have to be like really honest with ourselves. Like we have to really go in prayer. And because I have found I had that same struggle too with like when I stopped listening to heavy metal a long time ago, I really couldn't make the transition into Christian metal. I had to just find a different genre because when I asked myself, like, am I really, is this music really producing worship in me? Am I thinking about God? Am I drawing near to him? Or is it just that this is the beat that I love and that I've always loved? And for myself, and I can only speak for myself, I couldn't make a differentiation between the excitement that I was feeling in the Christian or the secular. So I just had to kind of move on and find a different genre to listen to. But I think it's really hard to be honest about that because music is so powerful and it moves our emotions. And it's very easy when you're listening to a Christian artist that as your emotions are reacting to that beat to say, well, I'm excited about the lyrics and I'm excited about the actual words that I'm singing. But in a lot of times I think we can fool ourselves. It might not be the lyrics at all. It might just be that driving beat.
Right. Absolutely. So let me ask you something. You guys got a little time?
Yeah.
All right, because I want to get into some of these artists, right? Somebody in the comments mentioned DMX. You guys know what DMX stands for?
No, I don't. Dark
Man X. And so at the time when Jay-Z and WuTang and all these people were getting more popular, they would all have alter egos. And I'm not saying that everybody that has an alter ego is worshiping Satan or got a demon or something like that. But DMX had his issues through his life, crack, this and that other. But he had an alter ego where one side he wants to worship God, and the other side is nothing but Satanism, right? I remember his second album, Blood of My Blood. I believe that's the name of the album, Blood of My Blood.
Is that the one with him in the bathtub?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first song says, I have blood on my, and I F the corpse.
Wow.
Okay. And then the song went on and on and on, right? A lot of his lyrics were satanic. He didn't come out, oh, I worship Satan or anything. In fact, he gave off this aura of, I'm going to be a pastor and all this stuff and whatnot. But ultimately, when you go back, if you have the time, and you listen to the first album, you listen to the second album, and I think you could just stop right there. There's a lot of stuff that's anti-God, ultimately, because God is holy. We are not. The things that I listened to back in the day, I can't just say I was gullible. I knew better. I just kept listening, you know? And I even listened to that album after that demonic possession. So I just wasn't ready to let go. There was a time in my life when I thought that I could never let go of hip hop. It was just that rooted in my spirit, you know? And it wasn't until, I told this before, you know, it wasn't until like 2006 where God just plucked it all out and I didn't have a desire for it anymore. So anyway, Darkman X, DMX is one of the, not the first satanic like rappers. You also have Eminem, who came out of a kind of a horrorcore genre as well. If you go back before he got famous at all, he was doing acid rap. Acid rap, you'll find a lot of Satanism in it. There's one guy, his name was Satan spelled backwards, Natas.
Natas.
I never listened to his music. I don't think I've ever listened to his music, but I would walk into the record store and see booming words from hell. I mean, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to listen to that, you know? So acid rap is that's like the step up. Horrorcore was a step up from acid rap. Acid rap was the gateway. Okay. And that continues till today. You had artists like oh my gosh, what's this guy's name? He had something like an album called Archangel. Can't remember right now. Anyway,
how about like 3-6 Mafia?
3-6 Mafia, 3-6 Mafia, and they knew exactly. These guys came out of church. I'm not even saying they're Christians. I'm not saying that at all. But they came out of churches, and they knew what they knew what that meant. Whether they did it for shock value or not, they're still promoting the Antichrist spirit. You know, even till today. I think the main beat maker in the group, I can't remember his name right now. He went platinum off of that song. It's hard out here for a pimp.
For the movie.
From the movie. That's when he got his platinum, his Grammy.
Hustle and Flow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, Hustle and Flow. He got his Grammy off of that. And but you know, you start looking at some of these artists exactly from that time, they were pushing the Antichrist spirit, whether they knew it or not, right? Okay, so Jay-Z, you probably could still find this video online. He was doing a set with Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin is the guy that produced for the Beastie Boys, right? And he was already into some weird stuff. He's weird himself. He
Producer of Slayer, by the way.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
He had I don't know if it was a chicken foot, but it had feathers on it. And he was preparing the room, doing the ritual, like he's spreading blood. It's not blood, but it's like he was spreading blood around the studio so they can prepare for the spirits to come in. You know, so they're guiding the music. You know, one time Jay-Z was rapping about something about the church and he said something out the Bible, and he said, I never read the Bible, but those lyrics were straight blasphemy, and he mentioned a Bible verse. I can't remember the verse right now, but it's there. Okay. And he never read the Bible. At least that's what he claims, right? Because these guys, and it's hard to prove this, I know, But at mid 2000s, everyone was rapping about Rain Man. Who was Rain Man? Rain Man was a spirit they were in touch with. Eminem, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, right?
Rihanna, I think even.
Yeah, Rihanna, right? And she in the what's the umbrella? The song Umbrella?
Mm.
She was encased in a triangle with a circle around it. It's a symbol of either, I think it's the male spirit, and when you're trapped in that triangle, it's ownership for to you. No, sorry, you're owned by that spirit. So I mean, she could deny being a devil worshiper like she does on some radio shows, but the symbolism is all through her music, and she has to approve this. It's not like, in the industry you have these artists that say, "Oh, it'll be cute if you put the hand over the eye and do that." Don't worry about it. It's not that. You had to approve this stuff, you know. And so then you have Lil Wayne, who has had many, 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 many demonic images in his music videos throughout the mid to late 2000. Sorry, from 2015, about 2015 and on. And what you're seeing is the music getting progressively satanic, progressively. What's the girl that came out with Dark Horse, the album?
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
What was she singing about on that album? Having sex with an alien, aka a demon or whatnot. She was singing about that stuff, and she's not the only person. So it's like something happened between the year 2000 and the year 2010, and things just started getting progressively satanic. And again, the satanic themes were already there. Is that these were popular songs, but now these songs are becoming popular.
And it was in hip hop, but it was also in pop music as well.
Yeah.
With artists like
I was going to
Lady
say
Gaga,
Kesha, Cannibalism.
I always watch the music that my kids listen to, and one of my kids wanted to listen to Kesha, and I was like, I never heard of her. Let me check her out. And the first video that I pulled up was a picture of her holding a heart up and drinking blood out of it. And I was like, no, we're gonna pass on that. You don't need to be listening to this music. And then it got worse from there. Like her next few music videos were straight up satanic with inverted crosses in them.
Yeah.
And anyway, I mean, yeah, it goes on and on. It was not only hip hop rap music, but pop music as well. Lady Gaga, a lot of stuff there.
Mm-hmm. There are a few artists from Europe. Oh my gosh. This last girl, she sang on the last James Bond soundtrack. Oh my gosh. I can't remember her name, but she's on the last James Bond soundtrack. Most of her songs are depressing, but it came out that she was into the 666 thing as well. And there was another one, I can't remember this lady's name, man. But she sounded like the girl next door. And guess what? She came out with a 666 as well. So they're being blatant with it now. It's on their clothing line. Oh, speaking of clothing line, sorry. Jay-Z had a clothing line called Master of the Craft. Now, at this time, when I found out about this, I was pretty much a hermit. I was in my Bible, kind of like in the video game stuff, but I just wasn't going out as much as I should. And then I got out, and I had a culture shock. I went into the store that sells urban clothing and whatnot. And I'm seeing all this Masonic stuff all around the store. I'm like, what is this? I said, who owns that label? Oh, Jay-Z. I'm like, what? Oh, so he's really into this, right? Masters of the Craft. If you ever go look up Masters of the Craft, because like you said earlier, he wears the Aleister Crowley, he wore it, Maxim on his chest. So forget that he's even a 5%er. He's into deep occult. He named his record, and I can't prove this 1000%, but he named his record Rockefeller Records. Rockefeller is deep into this Illuminati stuff, and they've ran so much interference in the culture of America. It's unbelievable. Okay, from feminism to abortion to our education system, you can go on and on about the Rockefellers. So why would you name yourself after that? Because of Rockefeller Tower? I don't think so. Right? And he's put out some questionable songs, but the main point is there is proof of a track record of Satanism within his not just his music but his lifestyle. He had a song on the double album that is from the My Way song. He pretty much used the whole song, but he rapped, between the verses or whatever. At that time, I didn't realize it was a ode to Satan. So I listened to it. But after finding out all these esoteric stuff, you're like, wow, man. And then you go into Beyonce, and that's his wife, and she had the motorcycle thing with the Baphomet on it, and then she's at the Super Bowl. I can't remember what Super Bowl it was, and she's doing this stuff, and her face starts to contort, and all this stuff, and like, see they had the dressing that she had was in a pentagram, and then she tried to call on the energy from the crowd. I mean, just go back and watch this stuff. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How to draw
for years we always knew, like, okay, what's the satanic ritual going to be this year?
Yes, yes.
It was like, how obvious can they make it? And churches would have these Super Bowl parties, but they would flip the channel during the ritual time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
and like what you were saying earlier, Chris, with DMX and kind of this like alter or this persona that he had, that was getting kind of popular too. And I know like Nicki Minaj had a couple of them, and Sasha Fierce with Beyonce, that whole thing.
I think we need to linger there for a second, because Sasha Fierce, for those that don't know, go back and look up the Sasha Fierce interviews and stuff. She's literally talking about a demon possessing her. Okay. And one time she said, I think she was talking about Sasha Fierce left or something like that. So it's only me, something like that she was saying. And then, like you said,
Minaj,
Roman was her, and she would dress. And for the skeptic, you might think, well, maybe they're doing it for the shock value, for, get us talking about it, stuff like that. I don't know. I don't believe that.
I never got that. There were artists that no doubt did that,
and
they went into it and they grew out of it or whatever. And I'm not defending any of that stuff. They figured out how to capitalize on it. Yeah. But that, I don't know. I thought that stuff was, it was coming from a real place.
Yes, absolutely. And now, as we progress here, the hip hop that we're witnessing today, and again, it's not everybody, but a lot of these mumble rappers are blatantly putting out satanic themes, lighting up pentagrams, having their eyes turn white, doing all sorts of dark images, from Kodak Black, that's a rapper, Kodak Black, to a bunch of these other ones. They're just doing demonic imagery. I saw one, I can't remember his name because I didn't listen to his music, but he was just riding in the street and his head was like, and it was like a bunch of different faces or whatnot. And then you had this other guy, he would just walk through the mall and whatnot, singing his song, and he'd talk about chakras and lighting up this incense and whatnot. I'm like, this is crazy. And other ones, they were at these I was watching a couple of hip-hop documentaries on like the new stuff, and they were like, talking about satanic themes like they were nothing, like it's okay, it's cool. And I'm like, this is how bad it's gotten. and then we have okay, so Kesha is in a satanic cult, but it's like a sex slave cult, sort of like Nexium, right? But what people haven't noticed for decades is the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis.
Yeah.
And this was founded by Aleister Crowley and the guy that founded Wicca. And pretty much it's a fraternity for the entertainers, to say it like that. And if you look up OTO, there's a magazine cover that you could find with there's a star in there, I don't know what her name is, but she has the OTO tattoo on her arm or something like that, or on her hip or something. And I'm like, this is getting very pervasive through the industry. But some people are just trying to make a living. They might not be saved or whatever, and they're just trying to get their talent out there, and they're not into this stuff. Mark Dice. You know who Mark Dice is?
Yeah.
He has a book about them trying to get him to do things. There is one artist. He never made it anywhere because he had to shut them down. He preached at my church when I wasn't even going there. It's before I even got there, and he was talking about how they literally had this white room that they had him go into, and he had to the group members had to sign their names in blood, and he refused to, and that's why he never went anywhere. He just dropped it all, and so this thing is real.
Chris, there was a famous recording or where somebody was talking about how they had compromised a lot of these artists through some kind of sexual humiliation or just some kind of compromise, like you mentioned, like signing in blood or whatever, and you got to get with the program, and we're going to make you rich, but this is what you got to do. Do you know what I'm talking about, or have you heard that? It's like 10 years ago. It was real popular.
Well, there's another way they get you without signing your name in blood and stuff. Like anything, they set you up, right? So one of the ways they do it is, okay, you're this hot underground artist, or maybe you're not even that hot, but you're up for a record deal, and so you don't want to compromise. So what they'll do is, because your flesh is weak, they'll set you up at a party, and you'll get in there with a young lady, but you already drank whenever you drank, and so you think you're okay. And when you wake up, Bubba over there has already tagged you, if you know what I mean. And they show you the photos. Then you got to sign the deal.
Yeah. And I've heard of similar things happening in Washington as well with politicians.
Yeah. So, I mean, no one wants their dark secrets out there, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it works on the gullible and usually the younger, and not that smart, but
unexperienced.
Yeah. From Scientology to any other cult, the music industry to me is a giant cult. So is DC. DC is ran, and the history, once you trail the history back, it's nothing but spiritism. All the way back to Abraham Lincoln, spiritism. His wife was a spiritist. Ronald Reagan's wife was a spiritist. You got Clinton trying to call on the spirit of dead people. It's Washington, D.C., on a whole, not everybody, but on a whole, is full of the occult. And this stuff comes right back into this entertainment industry, going up to Viacom and whoever else. Some of these people have already died off, but people take their place. And so you've heard my Agent Orange show. That was a big ritual party, and fortunately the person escaped. But who knows who was compromised there and went on to do other things, But what we're seeing, and all that stuff was secret, and now it's just out in the open. Witchcraft, or whether you want to call it Wicca or something else, has become the fastest growing religion in America. And so that's why we have the Portals of Baal being popular, and the 666 and all this stuff, and the Burning Man, even though that guy died, but you had other burns going on, and it started to become this global thing. And guess who was right in the middle of all that stuff? Hollywood. P. Diddy started going there, and other artists and stuff. So every year is started bringing more and more celebrities, because you know what? They get to do whatever they want. The first law of Satanism.
So let me ask you this. There's so many things that we could talk about, and artists and exposures and things like that. And honestly, we could go on for hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Just talking about this stuff. So we're at an hour and 49 minutes now. Let me throw something out at you and just kind of get your response to it. Tupac. what happened to Tupac. He gunned down in the middle of the Las Vegas Strip after a fight.
Yeah.
Suge Knight was in the car with him. Was this just normal business, or was he taken out because he was trying to make a difference, or was he a negative influence?
From all the documentaries I've seen, at least 6, it looks like he messed with the wrong people. He got close to the wrong people. He messed with the wrong people. There's one part where he got too close to this gangster guy, and it looks like he was trying to get away from him and whatnot. Then there's another part where he had a fight with these people in a casino, and they were, I think, Bloods, and that got real. I don't think the FBI took him out. I think he just messed around with the wrong people, and he was also trying to leave Suge Knight. Now, whether Suge Knight is guilty of that or not, I don't know. But there was an officer on that case. Let me make sure I'm not mixing up Biggie and Tupac. Okay.
Weren't there some officers that were Masons?
I'm not sure about that part.
Okay.
But I'm definitely sure that it was some gangsters.
Yeah, that's right.
That had a hit out on him. They had a hit out on him. And I think that's what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because every single documentary I see leads to the same point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Biggie's a different issue. But
well, you brought him up. Let's talk about him real quick.
I don't think it was Sean Puffy Combs that took him out. That's the conspiracy theory.
I don't think so either,
but he went to Los Angeles at a time when he shouldn't have. He didn't wait for things to cool down. And he said things that were inflammatory to the situation. And I watched a couple of documentaries on this too. It's like it always comes back to the same thing. A hit. There was a hit. And I don't think it had to really do with, because the whole East Coast, West Coast beef thing, that was a thing made up within the culture. The music was going on. Tupac had beef with him, and he slept with his wife, and all this stuff was flying around. But these guys used to be like best friends, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But they were even trying to squash the whole thing, you know? So I just don't think that it was like the FBI or, some other agency trying to take him out. Tupac, that could be a possibility, but I don't think that's what it is, because see, the difference between Tupac and Biggie was Tupac was getting a lot of more positive results from the community. And I was one of his biggest fans, like I said, he had Dear Mama and all these stuff, Brenda Had a Baby, and not all of his songs are positive, but he was going down this gangster route because he was around the gangster elements. He was not a gangster. Yeah, he shot off some gun by accident, AK-47, blah, blah, blah. He was not a gangster. Okay. So I think
he came out of sorry, I gotta say this guy's name. The Humpty Hump band.
Absolutely. Yeah, Humpty Hump. Yeah.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, but
there's a sound bite for you, Katie.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but I hate mixing up the two, man, because there was a cop on one of those cases that was in LA, so it sounded like it might point to Biggie.
Okay. That
he was getting very close to the evidence. He pretty much knew the car the person drove and that he was a Blood. And guess what? He was told to stand down. And if you ever look up the cop that was on the case, you'll see his story. He was told to stand down. They didn't want to touch the case anymore. It was just like, throw it out. So he got very close to solving the case. I think he solved it.
Well, but nobody's ever even been indicted on either one of those cases.
No.
2 of the biggest artists in hip hop
Yeah.
murdered, and we have not even a suspect.
Right.
Insane.
Yeah. You know what's funny, since we're talking about that, go back to the late 80s, early 90s. We talked about NWA. They were tools for the government, because who went to have dinner with George Bush?
Mm.
Dr. Dre, Easy. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that's how it started, but they
Right.
became tools. Guess who else is a tool of the government? Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Mhm.
They were sent to, I believe, either Cuba, I think Cuba, to disrupt what was going on there within government. Yeah, it's communist and everything, but there was some power play with the government here and over there to cause a disturbance, and they used those two to do it. They're agents, they're handlers,
Yeah.
or they're being handled.
Mm.
And then you could find this proof on the internet in articles. Go look it up if you want to. Whoever is a skeptic,
Mm.
because
Well, they were
go ahead.
doing it. They were doing it in the '60s, like so many of those artists in the '60s were operatives.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good thing you brought that up. Look up CAA. It's a corporation that places actors in government positions and other places,
Ah,
right? And definitely you should know about this one, Operation Mockingbird.
Mhm.
yes.
And this also goes into music as well, like you said before, and the book I have here, it goes into a lot of the people that were used to undermine our culture with the sexual revolution and all that stuff, that crazy stuff that went on back there.
Feminist movement.
Yeah, the feminist movement and
Yep.
all that stuff. So I would say when looking at a lot of this thing in a overarching sense, think government. Think government, because the CIA is
The
supposed to
world's
work.
leading entertainment, sports, and media agency. Wow.
Yeah, that's a very powerful company right there that you just looked up.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's very frustrating to make sense of it all, especially when you because before I moved here where I am now, and before God pulled me out of the whole industry, I was mingling with a whole bunch of people, and I met Lloyd Banks and a few others, and I would say I was on the outskirts of the inside. Okay. So I met enough people to actually move somewhere, but God didn't want me to go there. And for the most part, it just seems very innocent.
Mm.
It's innocent in a worldly sense, you
Mm.
know. But once you start mingling with the higher ups, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't get prettier, because there's a
Mm.
lot of people, a lot of guys getting uh raped, literally, and they can't talk about it. One person said that hip hop is ran by a gay mafia,
Mhm.
and that's not hard to believe today, right? Um, so there's all sorts of intricate details within the music industry. If you just stop right there, that can be extrapolated once you read a couple good books.
Mm.
Beware of videos online that try to make stuff too outlandish.
Mm.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know, and we've talked about this book before. Is Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon.
Mhm.
So, which talks about all the music from the '60s that came out of Laurel Canyon, and the parents of these musicians were in military intelligence.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and by David McGowan, who wrote the book Program to Kill, which connects the serial killers to Satanism. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Wow.
Chris, I don't know. I feel like we covered so much, but we didn't even get started. Honestly.
Yeah.
Um, give everybody again your website that they can find all your stuff, what you have coming up, all that stuff.
Don'tLetThemBurn.com. And of course, the YouTube channel is the main hub. You can find me on. I'm very active on Twitter nowadays, but if you want to follow my my Twitter channel. No, sorry, not my Twitter, but my Telegram channel. Telegram. I'm active on Twitter, but go and try to follow me on Telegram because I post stuff there that I'm not talking about on my program. I don't have time to keep up with everything, but I'm also sharing resources like books and stuff for you to help yourself. And again, the ultimate message is about Jesus Christ and the gospel, but then we expose darkness, talk about Bible prophecy, and we dovetail into 12 categories so that everything isn't conflated into one show, right? So, if you're interested, follow me there. I'm writing a book right now called Hollywood Matrix Cinema Decoded.
Wow.
And it's partly a testimony, a bio of my life within my experiences with the movie genre. And then I go from there and I start to break down some of the elements within some of these movies to show you exactly what you've been fed for the years.
Hmm.
So hopefully I can come up with that book by summer.
Awesome.
And that's it. That's what I'm up to.
Chris, okay, just
Wow.
one more thing. What about Snoop Dogg, man? Snoop Dogg seems so lovable, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Man.
I mean, he kind of, he was a bad guy. I mean, he knew he was a bad influence. And I
Mhm.
know he smokes a lot of dope now, but I feel like I want to give him a hug when I see him, you know? And just say, Snoop, let me pray for you.
I mean, hopefully one day you can do that, man. Snoop is through the influence of Dr. Dre.
Hmm.
Dr. Dre is a big influence on our culture.
Mm-hmm.
The artists that he promotes. But from the onset, I mean, as soon as Doggy Style dropped, and the Chronic and all this stuff, he was a bad influence. Yes, it was bad, but the music was so good, right? But after I kind of stopped listening to him, I kept watching, and then he bought a porn company, right? So I'm like,
Snoop
oh
Dogg did?
yeah, look it up. Yeah, he owned a
Oh,
porn company.
wow.
I'm not sure if he still owns it, but he did own one. And so he went from bad to worse, right?
Hasn't he been married to his high school sweetheart for?
Yeah, yeah. But I guess she don't care, right? He also, as a spiritual component, came out with a gospel album, right?
Wow.
But before that, he came out with a Rastafarian album as Snoop Lion,
Snoop Lion. I remember Snoop
That's
Lion.
right. Yeah.
and you go back to "Murder Was the Case," the song and the album. Sorry, there wasn't an album, but there was a song off of Deep Cover. He's talking about selling his soul to the devil. Was he doing that for entertainment? Because Deep Cover wasn't about that,
I remember that video.
right? And he's talking to the devil and he's selling his soul, and the
Murder
soul,
was a case that they gave me.
right?
Oh,
See,
stop.
I knew that I just couldn't bring up anything and I knew you would have an answer.
I mean, I try to keep watch the newer stuff. Is just but I was just tracking this stuff as I'm learning about the Bible and other things, and it was just like, man, it's like this is not getting better. Even Eminem is trying to act like he's somewhat biblically inclined now, right?
Mhm.
No,
Mhm.
you're Satanist, buddy. You've rapped about Satanism all your life, but now you want a different crowd to come in. So you're going to talk about the Bible. You see how Satan is just wicked, crafty. So anyway,
Yep.
I know
Okay.
that.
Bad timing. I had to sneeze there. Folks, Chris Taylor, don't let them burn.com is the website. Go check him out. All the links are below. We just appreciate you hanging out with us, Chris, and everybody that's listening. Guys, thanks for subscribing and sharing and everything that you do. Vicky Joy and I are going to be back tomorrow night, and the topic is testing the spirits. So come again and hang out with us. Don't forget about the conference. We want to see you there. If you can make it, it's in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio area. Come on out. Greg Reed, Mike Spalding, Coach Dave, many more, the whole Through the Black crew. Hey, here's a commercial for it. We'll see you tomorrow night, guys. God bless.